I wanted to discuss this important article that shows the sorry state of academia. The article discusses whether racism is a mental illness and is part of Vice News. It's very interesting to note from reading the article and even the sub-headline that the article does not want to discuss whether racism is a mental illness in and of itself, but whether mental illness or the category of mental illness could be used as a tool to effectively eradicate or reduce racism. This instrumental view of reality is nothing new and has been since the Enlightenment. The idea behind the Enlightenment was to convert the ontology that was believed to be reality in the traditional mindset into an instrumental tool which could bring about consequentialist benefits. Science is a great example. Science was and is not defined as a quest for search of truth, or even something that denotes or depicts the reality of the universe, but a tool that can help us in realizing consequentialist benefits by developing models that can depict reality in a way that would be beneficial for us. And this is the reason why researches that are very relevant or important but are not advantageous to the people do not get good place in the academic literature, even if they are very valid and very good, because the whole concept of science has been modeled in a way in which to benefit oneself. Much of this benefit was about acquiring pleasure or reducing pain and suffering, and this has now transformed into ideology too. There were links with the ideology before as well because there was a clear idea or a semi-clear idea about which ideologies were bad and which ideologies were good. The good ideology obviously was the liberal ideology that emerged out of the Enlightenment. This is merely an extension of that. So let us read this article and try to see what it is about. Firstly, it mentions Jane Elliott on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 1992, talking about prejudice and racism. She says, "What we are dealing with here is mental illness." A member of the audience started clapping. Racism is a mental illness. If you judge other people by the color of their skin, by the amount of a chemical in their skin, you have a mental problem. You are not dealing with reality. Of course, this passage is very interesting, but it denotes that this phenomenon is nothing new. Even in 1992, just saying that racism was a mental illness would have audience clapping, but why? Why would audience clap when talking about what could be a mental illness? Well, the reason was obviously the audience felt that defining racism as such would be validating their own views because they would be thinking themselves as not racists. Clearly, the use of the category of mental illnesses not as a way to arrive at truth, but as a way to uh, humiliate or have negative views about your ideological opponents was prevalent. Of course, if someone says something X is a mental illness, it is purely a factual claim, does not require clapping, especially if one does not have given explanation for why that claim is being made in the first place. The answer was obvious. The audience thought of itself as something of an anti-racist, and when someone would disparage the racist, it would feel validated. It's a very tribal behavior, but it's not surprising because trying to adopt another ideology does not mean that you lose the tribal behavior. You lose a primitive sense of feeling happy when your ideological opponents are lampooned or humiliated. Then Jane goes on to say, racism is a mental illness. If you judge other people by the color of their skin, by the amount of a chemical in their skin, you have a mental problem. You are not dealing well with reality. But there is no way, no statistics, no fact that is provided to substantiate this claim. This is a very basic dogmatic idea after the Enlightenment that people are all equal. There is no difference between them, and any difference, if it exists, is superficial. So Jane Elliott says or holds that any attitude of racism is solely about the amount of chemical in the skin of the person, but that is obviously false, because what racists say, whether they are right or not, is that different races have different traits and different proclivities to different actions and behavior. So from the perspective of the racists, they are seeing something more than the chemical in the skin. And now the question is whether they are right or wrong. But even if we believe that they are wrong, just based on the ideology, just based on some sort of sense of uh, moral egalitarianism, even then classifying their views as being just about the chemical in the skin is in no way helping eradicate the problem of racism, because that is not what they actually believe. This is very similar to another component or another analogy that is often made with regards to sexism. If you judge people by what they have between their legs, you have a mental problem. But obviously, there's a huge difference between the sexes, even more than what they have between their legs. Of course, we know at least about the secondary sexual characteristics, we also know about hormones. Both of these statements, both in regards to racism and sexism, are made not because of any acquaintance with reality, but because of following of an egalitarian dogma. And in it there is no doubt, because if it was not that, then it would not be followed by clapping, because clapping would only come, because if this was really a factual claim, clapping would only come if that fact was validated or justified. Nobody would clap if a person says, "There is the earth that revolves around the sun," because it is a factual claim. People perhaps would clap if someone provides a point of great ingenuity that helps in solving some great mathematical or scientific problem, but this is not that. Here, the clapping is because of ideology and ideological differences. Then we move on and discuss other things as well. So the article talks about how searches for racism as a mental illness have spiked. But it also is very cautious in talking about racism as a mental illness. It says that disability and mental health advocates push back strongly against this association. And this is very significant because it is about disability and mental health advocates. Presumably, they should not be political. Presumably, they should be scientific. But they are not pushing back strongly against the association because they believe that racism is not a mental illness, but because they believe that racism is a choice, while mental disorders are not. And they believe that calling racism a mental illness would perpetuate the stigma around mental illnesses and would continue the practice of using mental health language in a derogatory way. They say, or the author says, the impulse to attribute racist acts and hate crimes to mental illness also conflates mental illness and violence, even though most mentally ill people do not engage in violent acts and are at risk of harming themselves, not at risk of harming others. It's a very interesting passage. And the reason why it is interesting because it also has similar issue. The point here is not whether there is something in the mind that creates something that is biologically present in some part of the brain that creates racist attitudes or, or racist thoughts. The point here is something else. The point here is that if someone would say that racism is a mental illness, it would justify the use of uh, derogatory language with regards to mental health issues. That is what they believe to be a problem. But that would only be if the racists, even after being defined as a mentally ill group, would be humiliated by use of speech. But if that is indeed the case, then why other mentally ill patients should not be humiliated? Why only make exception for racists if racism is indeed a mental illness? Are not all dependent on their biology? Well, maybe someone would say that racism is a choice. But this question is not about racist acts, but racism itself, the belief or the intuition that races are different and one race is superior to others. The article talks about a move in 1969 by black psychiatrists to petition the American Psychiatric Association to add extreme bigotry to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM. Some would say that DSM is not political. Well, let's look. This petition was rejected. However, the APA's reason for rejection was that for something to be considered a mental illness, it must deviate from typical thinking or behavior and cause disruption and distress to a person's life. The APA said the racism was, in contrast, so widespread that it was a cultural issue, not a psychopathology. Racism is too common, in other words, to be an illness. But this is a very bizarre statement. Did APA perform an analysis which determined that racism was too common? Or it was basically an apprehension by observing the culture? How to even define racism in terms of biology? That should be the first question. The question should not be whether it is too common or not. Some mental disorders are very common. For example, many people have OCD. Asking whether extreme racism, the article goes on further to say, is a mental illness often goes along with trying to understand extremely racist acts. But this is just surprising. The question here is again not about racist acts, but whether there is a correlation between neurons present in the mind or brain and racist behaviors or thoughts. It then goes on to discuss some potentially offensive actions, even including the NASCAR case, which was very unconvincing and was, in all practical sense, proven to not be newsworthy and most possibly a fake stunt by Bubba Wallace. The article then goes on to discuss whether by not calling racism a mental illness, whether it means that we are normalizing these behaviors, but this is also absurd. The role of the category of mental illness is not to use as a bludgeon against people. So it has nothing related to mental illness. In fact, the category of mental illness exists so as the mentally ill people can be treated because it is believed that their thoughts and their behaviors are a result of some mental imbalance, and if that imbalance is cured, such illness would stop. The article then says racism exists on a spectrum, from extreme racist beliefs and hate crimes to the prejudices all white people have and need to reckon with. And this is here we see how a certain category of people are attributed, specifically the property of racism. This is very surprising because that statement itself could be said to be racist. But the issue is not that. At what point in time we'd say that saying that all people are X is stereotyping or generalizing them. Of course, the article is written in a political fill of mind, and this is the reason why it specifically targets specific categories of people, because it is about power. Of course, there is no question about that. But the point here is not to discuss what the left believes, but what the scientists say and believe, and how they act, and what is the mindset of some part of academia. In 1965, talks about a psychiatrist, Alvin Poison, went to Jackson, Mississippi. He was arguing for desegregation. He says, I felt it was like mental disturbance because you couldn't reason with people over it. I began to appreciate how deep it went in terms of denying the humanity of black people. He says that it was reminiscent of a delusion. No matter what you tell a person who is delusional, if their belief system makes no sense and is irrational, they still feel that the black people are inferior no matter what you show them. That's a delusion. That's a fixed belief system. But Alvin did not perform any experiment. This was his own view. And he was a psychiatrist. Is performing a thorough analysis of the patients not required to judge them, to determine what is delusion? This statement of delusion, right, this definition of delusion that Alvin is using, does not have any single medical and objective term attached to it. Of course, people of different political sides believe that the other person is irrational. There are a lot of beliefs that completely normal people have that other people would call irrational, nonsensical, delusion. Where is the medical language if he's a psychiatrist? Of course, he's not interested in medical language because his goal is, like other people, to eradicate racism. And this is what he wants. He says that only the extreme racism should be classified as a mental disorder. He says that's beyond being normal. Some of the people who object to it being called mental disorder say, well, it's just learned behavior. It's a learned behavior to want to exterminate people because of their skin color? Not to my way of thinking, but that is exactly the point of the left. If indeed killing people because of their race is not a learned behavior, it must be genetic. But if it is genetic, if it is present in people, why from the start? Then how it could be cured in the first place? Unless, of course, one finds a medicine that he shares with everyone who suffers from this kind of mental disorder. Carl Bell is also a psychiatrist who also viewed racism as a mental illness, the author says, but he linked it to personality disorders. In 2004, the article says he wrote that people with paranoid disorders or had trauma inflicted upon them by other groups could also have racist thoughts or behaviors that are explained by those psychological disruptions. But the question here is not whether a person who has some form of paranoia or trauma, whether that person has racist thoughts, but whether racism could be classified as something of a disorder, personality disorder. Both these two statements are not equivalent. Paranoid disorders might be one cause of racism, but there might be other causes of racism too. So we go back to the statements by Alvin. Alvin then goes on to say that I felt that if I was a perfect person, I could cure white people of their racism. So he clearly had a goal in mind. And this is the goal which leads him to say something like this. Right now, there is a normalcy to it. It's a disorder among many, many people indoctrinated with the culture of insanity, of slavery and Jim Crow. But just before that, Alvin says, or questions the fact that it is called a learned behavior. So here, Alvin questions whether racism is a learned behavior. And here, he says that It is a behavior of people indoctrinated with the culture of insanity of slavery and Jim Crow. And then he says he thinks classifying it as a mental illness would help to fix that. So basically, he has both the options available. Sometimes he says when a strict criteria is applied, that it is not learned behavior, which means that it must be genetic. But then he goes on to say that it would be a learned behavior, and classifying it as a mental illness would help. But that's bizarre, because if it is not a learned behavior, then classifying it as a mental illness would not help. Of course, the reason why he says so is because he wants white people or the racists to take the blame of racism. And this is the reason why he wants to classify racism as a mental illness. He says if racism is a mental illness, it pushes the problem onto white people. It acknowledges that there is something wrong in the way they are thinking and feeling. And this is what Alvin wants. Alvin wants white people to believe that the problem is with them and not with the black people. Sander Gilman, a professor of psychiatry, another professor, another person who is related to field of psychiatry at Emory University, and other co-author of Are Racists Crazy? Are Racists Crazy is a book that discusses whether racists are crazy. Said that the urge to deem racism a mental illness comes from a wish to place it outside the scope of typical human behavior when it is not. Now, Sander Gilman had produced a book with Adolf Eichmann. Oh, sorry, Hannah. Sander Gilman had produced a book. Sander Gilman had produced a book with James Thomas. Are Racists Crazy? And the reason why he wants to not define racism as a mental illness is because he believes that it would mean that it is not thought of as evil, and he wants it to be seen as evil. This is the problem that he faces because he really, really hates Nazis and believes that saying that Nazis were mentally ill is trying to offer them a way out. The article then discusses that idea. It talks about a guy, Anders Breivik, who killed 77 people in Norway. But then the Norwegian court decided that since his extremist beliefs were shared by other right-wing groups in Norway, he couldn't claim delusion or hallucination or impaired cognition as a defense and could not plead insanity. The article goes on to discuss whether defining racism as a mental illness would allow racists to escape by claiming that they are just mentally ill. But this again contradicts a previous point. Let's see how this argument is made. Jackson. So Daniel Jackson, a general psychiatry and behavioral health resident at Yale University, says that if racism was added to DSM, she would be concerned that people would try to use their diagnosis as legal defense when charged with hate crimes. So she is not concerned whether it is a mental disorder, but whether it could be used as a legal defense. If it is could be used as a legal defense, and that is, in her opinion, a bad thing, then even if it was a mental disorder, she would be against classification of it as a mental disorder. What other things are there in this psychiatry, one must wonder, which are not classified as mental disorder or which are classified as mental disorder just because of moral beliefs? of people involved in the academia. The article then goes on to discuss other things. Jackson says if calling racism a mental illness was helpful, she would feel differently. So obviously, it's about the consequential ends and not the reality of the situation. It's about whether that could be a tool. DSM could be a tool to advocate for specific policies. Now, we go back to Jane Elliott. Even Jane Elliott might agree. Despite her stance on racism as a mental illness, she was an advocate for early intervention education on race, believed that racism was far from being normal, that it was instead taught to us throughout our lives. Again, saying that racism is a mental illness, but also that it is a learned behavior. Almost every psychiatrist has here contradicted himself or herself, which is bizarre and very interesting because nothing in that field is open to actual facts and evidence because there is a lot of incentive to use psychiatry as a tool to bludgeon or hammer political ideologies. The article points out that already that it is because of racism that mental illness is more likely to be given as an explanation for violence by white people than people of color. But how can someone who believes that it is a superior race believe that it is also very mentally ill? Isn't being mentally ill a flaw? Again, the article contradicts itself. One cannot believe that he is better than the other person and still suffering from mental illness, unless we believe in this very strange concept of society in which mental illness is valued or prized. None of the points in the article stand to scrutiny by the other points in the article. And this is what is hilarious about it.